Quiet strength. With a foundation in the New Testament and history in 19th century Europe, the Deaconess Community of the ELCA supports and develops skilled and committed Lutheran women to offer servant leadership to all of God's people. A deaconess is committed to a life of service through the creation of vital, healthy, and whole communities and witness to the love of Christ, of service to church and society, grounded in biblical witness and the Lutheran confessions, of intercessory prayer, corporate worship, spiritual discipline, and direction. Deaconesses are strengthened through a community that nurtures and empowers its members and that affirms and appreciates the diversity and gifts of all people.
I have found that being a deaconess is the best way to express what I think God wants me to be doing.
I would say the Deaconess Community is a very interesting place to serve. It's being called to be a deaconess doesn't mean you're called to a life of not, all work and not enjoying life. But I have found that you enjoy life abundantly.
We come with different skill sets. We come with our life experiences to meet the challenges that may come before us. We're bringing all we have to the altar in order to do what God has called us to do.
Now I understand what community's about.
The role of a deaconess is drawn from the Bible. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, commends our sister Phoebe, a deacon of the church, for she has been a benefactor of many and of myself as well. Acts 6 establishes the diaconia, a Greek word meaning service. Early church leaders selected disciples of good standing, full of the Spirit and of wisdom, to be appointed to serve neglected widows in the daily distribution of food.
There were many deaconesses probably through the early church, but as the church became institutionalized, the role of women changed, just as we began to conform more to social norms. But I think God calls us to, just as Jesus crossed all these boundaries, God calls us to cross these boundaries as well.
One of many formally organized deaconess communities past and present, the Deaconess Community of the ELCA is an outgrowth of a revival of a New Testament diaconate that began in Kaiserswerth, Germany. In 1836, more than a century before women were considered for ordination, Pastor Theodor Fliedner and his wife Friederich Munster called women to serve the poor and the sick. These women were known as deaconesses. They spread across Europe, and by 1884 there were 56 deaconess communities and 5,653 deaconesses. In an era before institutionalized social services, these women served the homeless, the mentally ill, those in prison, and anyone who had need. Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing, spent time with the deaconess community in Kaiserswerth and was strongly influenced by them. She wrote, "Never have I met with a higher love, a purer devotion than there." In North America, the need for skilled nursing care at the German hospital in Philadelphia prompted wealthy businessman John Lankanaugh to call 7 Lutheran deaconesses from Iserlohn. Eventually, women born outside of Europe, like Edith Prince and many others, answered the call to live in community as a deaconess. With the sisters' help, Lankanaugh Hospital and its associated School of Nursing grew into a leading regional healthcare provider. Deaconesses have always lived in community. Community is an integral part of the call to diaconia. In the early days, this literally meant living together. In Philadelphia, the deaconesses established a mother house. This oasis of community provided housing, fellowship, and educational opportunities. A similar mother house for deaconesses opened in Baltimore in 1895 when the General Synod of the Lutheran Church established a mother house and a board of deaconess work. It was the first church body to establish a diaconate designating deaconesses as persons holding an office of the church. In 1890, Emmanuel Hospital and Deaconess Mother House in Omaha, Nebraska was established. These Lutheran deaconess communities lived out their calling and vocation with faithfulness and dedication. Fulfilling their call to serve the poor and disenfranchised, deaconesses served the growing waves of European immigrants through cutting-edge ministries like the Lutheran Settlement House. Begun in 1902, deaconesses continue to support this ministry, now one of many human services agencies. Partnered with Lutheran Services of America, the Deaconess Community recently provided the Settlement House with a $25,000 grant for a new program for women to help end the cycle of domestic violence.
Yeah, the Lutheran Settlement House is a multi-service agency that serves vulnerable people in the community. We have a program for our seniors, and we have a domestic violence program which provides counseling and a 24-hour hotline and provides education in the community.
In the 20th century, European Lutheran identity faded in favor of a new, more ethnically diverse American culture. This social phenomenon led to a series of mergers between church bodies, synods, and deaconess communities. In 1988, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America was born. The Deaconess Community, formerly of the Lutheran Church in America, joined the ELCA as an intact community. From the beginning of merger talks, both the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada and the ELCA agreed that this community would serve both churches. One sister puts it this way: "Our sense of community is a calling from God. It comes from knowing one another and caring passionately for others, for this calling and for our community. It comes from our long history and how we retell it each time we come together. It comes from a sense of identity, now as a roster of the church, as a ministry, as a call, and as an unusual and historical way of offering ministry."
As I see it, the Deaconess Community provides a way for women to, when they feel that urge to serve Christ, be more focused on that call to serve Christ, that the Deaconess Community provides that opportunity to explore that call in depth and be supported by a group of women who know what that feels like.
Well, I always wanted to serve the church, but I never felt called to preach. And I have since learned that Luther said, if you're not called to preach, don't do it.